It's a game and you're on a level. And once you learn the lesson, you can go to the higher level. And that's that path to success. I am your host, Jason Julius. And today we have an Entrepreneurial Chronicle. Actually, I'm pretty stoked to bring this guest to the table because the reality is we've been doing business with each other for a couple of years. But I mean, this is like over the last month, this is like legitimately the first time we've actually had a chance to meet each other. But Wes Miller, Wes has been doing business in Kokomo for quite a long time. And I'm not going to go deeper than that because I'm going to let him tell his own story. But if you guys will happen to notice, so those of you might be watching the video version, I brought my Coffee Junkies coffee because Wes also happens to be a coffee junkie. So we figured we'd drink a little bit of coffee, but regardless, let's dive right in. Wes, how we doing today, brother?
I'm doing well.
Okay. Thanks. So, I want to, I want to dive right in because I mean, I'm like, you do all of my lawn care and landscaping. And we pretty much decided this year that we were going to give you all of the snow plowing, to which then I've always questioned, like, these are seasonal businesses. So how do these entrepreneurs actually fill their year? And before you know it, I've had you involved in some of my electrical issues in buildings and plumbings, but I wanted to get the full story. So, brother, let's go back to the beginning. I mean, like, I want to hear your story as far as where you came from and how it worked into an entrepreneurial journey.
Awesome. Well, it all started, obviously, I grew up in Kokomo. My family owned Robert Miller and Son Furniture. I went to RIT in New York after high school.
So you went from a little big, or what was it, big small town Kokomo to the Big Apple for some college?
Well, I was in Rochester, so I wasn't actually in New York City, but it was a much bigger city.
Okay.
Went there for printing management, got to learn a little bit about screen printing and did some elective classes, ended up deciding that wasn't for me, came back, went to IU Bloomington and got my degree in business management and computer information systems.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's kind of the start.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, because that is nowhere near landscaping, lawn care, snow removal, but okay, keep going.
So I had worked on and off for my grandfather and dad at the furniture store throughout high school and in summer, during college, and even some on the weekends when they had sales and things like that, and liked it. My dad decided that before he would bring me into the company that I had to get some experience working for some other furniture store besides his.
And you know what? Let's stop there because I want to. There's a thing there. So I mean, I brought my kids into my business when they were kids, like we would get into the season where it's like, hey, it's time to peel the eggs. We'd take anybody and like, go get the kids. They can peel some eggs. And I joked that I fired my daughter 5 times as a kid. And it was very much if you're going to work for me, you need to go out and see what it's like to work for other people to see if you can come back and have any type of appreciation for actually being able to work in a quote unquote family small business. That'd be exactly. About okay.
So that comes up again here in a few minutes. So I went to Indianapolis and I worked for Gert Furniture for a year and did well. I loved it. I ended up staying in Indianapolis and Zionsville and Carmel for the first 8 years after college.
So your parents ever think that, oh shit, maybe we gave him bad advice and we actually lost him?
No, because I only stayed for Gert for 1 year.
Oh,
and
okay.
Then I came back and I worked for Robert Miller and Son, even though I lived in Indianapolis. I loved the environment at that age. I didn't want to leave it.
Okay.
So for 9 years, I worked at Robert Miller and Son Furniture, kind of as an assistant manager, helped in the warehouse, but started out doing deliveries. I mean, basically from warehouse all the way to being top in sales.
So, because I'm going to assume at that time, like your parents are still in full swing. They're still, I mean, as far as running their business, they were not thinking about retirement at that point.
They had started, but not. They had not left yet. It was about 4 or 5 years until my dad started to wean himself out of the business. And Mark Nichols, who now owns Robert Miller and Son, him and he was the general manager and I was the assistant manager for the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
Then one day, after being one of the top salespeople for months over months, my dad walks in my office and says, "Pack all your shit, you're out of here."
Wow.
Nothing that I had done wrong that I knew of.
There's a wedge there, and I'm like, out. I didn't see that coming, but there's definitely a story within a story coming here.
So my dad, and I thought he was joking at first, and I said, no. He said, pack your stuff. You can take your computer, get everything off of it, but you're done here. And I'm like, I'm lost for words at this point.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a little shocked hearing it. I'm thinking that there's got to be some type of explanation.
Just popped my balloon, my bubble, my safety bubble that I had been in for basically my whole life. And what I thought I would do was, go to school and go into the furniture business. So pack all my stuff, get in the car, I'm driving back home to Zionsville, and
it's a total gut punch, and that's the ego side of it.
I think I was probably bawling so hard I could not even see the road, and I get a phone call, and it's my dad, and I didn't even want to answer it.
Yeah,
that's how upset I was. But I answered the phone, and he said, "Be at the house at 5:30 for dinner. Mom's fixing dinner." I said, I'm mad at this point, so I don't know exactly what words came out of my mouth.
Somewhere along the line, there's a lesson.
But at the end of the conversation, my dad said, "You'll be there at 5:30 or else we're having dinner."
Wow.
So I end up at my parents' house at 5:30, sat down at the table, and my dad said, "You come up with a business plan, but I cannot watch my son be unhappy for the rest of his life at that furniture store. It's not for you."
Wow.
And my dad still to this day says it's the hardest thing he ever did, but it was the best thing he ever did for me.
So the reality is, there was no back politics reason. It's just your father saw.
My dad saw that was not for me.
Wow.
Even though I felt very successful at it. I did a good job. I was able to sell, I may not have been the world's greatest manager with the people, but it's hard to be the owner's son and also be a manager. And
I'm going to be honest, that again, we come back to my journey. Today, neither one of my kids are with me,
right?
For different reasons, but my son very much, he was trying to transition into management. Other people were struggling with that, and he was struggling with that because as he's trying to come into his own, he was struggling with walking in my shadow. And it was something that he was internally struggling with, to the point that he himself came to the conclusion that it was time for him to do something else. And I'm still sitting there going, I hold out hope in life that I don't know, that somehow it was all meant to be and come back together. But right now, he's out on his own, grinding it out on his own, because he didn't want to be in the son of.
Right.
And it looked like you weren't necessarily thinking in those terms, but your father was looking out for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was never Wes Miller when anyone walked in the store. I was Tim's son.
Okay.
I was never my own individual, and that is probably the best way I can explain how you feel when you're in that position. You're always the owner's son.
Yep.
No matter how good you do, what you do for the business, you can be the top salesperson every month, and you're still just the owner's son.
Okay.
That never changes, and it's very hard. It's ugly when you're in the position, but I was there. I was in a very comfortable bubble, and I wasn't going to pop it. And I was willing to put up with the crap that came along with it. So back to the dinner table, my dad said, "This is not for you. You're not going back. It's never an option again, so don't even think about it."
And never mind you burning your up, because there's a certain amount of, I knew I had to burn my own bridges to so that I continued to push forward. Your dad just flat burned them bridges to the ground.
He took the whole thing.
But that, I mean, while it kind of looks like tough love, man, I mean, I'm already feeling that compassion, that wow, he was really looking out for you.
Well, and he knew that I didn't like being in the building.
Yep.
I didn't like being in the same place all the time. I was one of the top salespeople because I always went to people's homes. I didn't sell.
That extra level of service.
I didn't sell by people coming into the furniture store.
Okay.
They would come in, they would see things they'd like, then I would make an in-home consultation with them. And instead of them coming in and buying a recliner, I sell them a sofa, a recliner, a rug, end tables, lamps, picture, so it.
No, you you made the most out of the sale opportunity. That's awesome.
But that caused a lot of jealousy within the other salespeople and the manager because I wasn't there a lot.
Okay.
They didn't like that. But
yet you were clocking the sales.
How do you say, no, you can't do that when you make sales?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, if I had an hour and 10-minute lunch, I heard about that for a week, because I was done at the client's house at 2:00 and I didn't get back till 3:15.
And of course you were the boss's son.
Just not always the greatest thing.
Yeah.
So when we sat down at the table, my dad said, come up with the game plan. And through high school, early on high school, and even middle school, I worked for Castle Landscaping, and I did one summer there with him. I think I was only 14 or 15 because I know I had to get a work permit through the school. And
you know what? That's funny in itself. I hate to. It's like I want to interject here, but I'm like, so dude. I mean, I started working full time at 14 years old. It was because I wanted to. Like I wanted to get out into the workforce. I mean, I was working 40 hours a week at Shoney's at 14 years old because it was the closest place for me to walk, and I saved up money till I could buy a moped. Then I was able to get a little bit further out until I could get a car. But I wanted my kids to enjoy their childhood. I don't think my kids ever put in an honest day's work until they were over 18 years old. I was at least able to afford them that luxury.
Right.
You literally had that luxury, yet you still got out and was working at that age that you had to get a permit to work.
Yeah. I couldn't stay home. And it was just like me being trapped in the building there. It just wasn't for me. So Dad sat down with me, I don't care what you want to do, how big you want to go with this, let's figure out what it is you need to start whatever business you decide you want to do, and I'll help you get started.
Wow.
So basically I said, well, what I'm really going to need is I'm going to need a truck, I'm going to need a trailer. And that was the start. We started doing landscaping, some lawn care a little bit, but basically really started getting big. And the first big job that I did after leaving the furniture store was I redid an entire kitchen, a high-end kitchen, $70,000 kitchen. And it's the first time I had ever even tore a wall out.
Oh, man, that's big trust. That's a big kitchen. And you got somebody okay, obviously you knew how to go into somebody else's home and sell, but you're bringing in furniture. How did you, with no experience, sell somebody to say, let me take a hammer to your wall. I promise it'll be all okay when I get done.
Well, I think it had a lot to do with my confidence in going into people's homes and saying, this is what you need.
Okay.
So I would find the product that I felt like was best. So here's the cabinet I recommend. I found a good cabinet maker, and here's the tops that I recommend. Here's the hardware I recommend. Let's get these appliances. And he said, let's go for it.
Wow.
And that just started basically my kitchen and bath, which was mainly my big part of the business to begin.
Okay.
And then we've gone into basically to the point now where I'm building homes from foundation up.
So you started by just no experience, tearing out and redoing kitchens and baths, and now you're doing full home builds.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I didn't have any experience, but trust me, I was not an experienced carpenter by any means. But I had people throughout my childhood that taught me different things.
Well, and the thing is, there's no way you did this all yourself. I mean, you had to get help, and I'm sitting there going, I'm going to assume that a certain amount of your father's entrepreneurial spirit and problem solving and reaching out to resources had to have been something that you observed over time.
Absolutely.
So, wow.
Yeah. And even when I was still in high school, the landscaping and lawn care part came from the high school. That's why I decided to get back into it. When I was 15 and didn't even have my license, I was hiring seniors that had trucks for the summer so that we could do landscaping.
Wow.
So I couldn't even.
You got them as labor and said, hey, bring your truck.
Bring your truck, because I don't have a driver's license or a truck.
That is
so
awesome.
I need you to drive me around, but I'll pay you. And so we started bringing in that division of the company about a year after I started in, and that's just continued to grow and grow.
Wow.
So,
well, and I'm going to be honest on that end of it. I mean, grow and grow, yes, because I don't want to say, I think, because I mean, it all kind of runs together. I know that I sought you out because you had the Star Financial contract, and it was solid work. I mean, I'm sitting right next door watching that it was methodical, that it was consistent, and I mean, honestly, I've seen that, because people try and get into small business where they want to get into business, then they find out how hard it is, and consistency is key across the board. And that was what I always observed, was that Star's lot was always nice. And I just finally got tired of dicking around trying different people. And I just finally went over to Star and was like, who does your lawn care? They're mowing half of it. They might as well come do my half at the same time.
Yep. And that's how it's been for a lot. I mean, I haven't done advertising. I don't.
So you just generally grown by word of mouth?
I've grown by word of mouth.
That's awesome.
So a lot of neighbors of neighbors. I mean, it seems like we have little pods of areas that we, do mowing, because we'll start at one house and then it'll be the neighbors or two houses down, and then landscaping, same thing.
And that's like literal grassroots growing, because I can attest on that. I mean, my competition was a major competition where I've had to spend ad dollars, and I'm like, I'd have a whole lot of money if I could have those ad dollars back in my bank account.
Exactly.
So and word of mouth is always that organic growth is the most powerful growth. And so, I mean, that's very commendable. You got to respect that.
Yeah. And having good clients that are willing to, speak up and say, hey, the yard looks like this because you need to call this guy.
Yep.
So kind of the same situation you were in.
Exactly.
So, and then last year I opened ESS, which is Earth Surface Solutions, and we do excavating so that we could do our own foundation work on all of the new construction that we're doing.
Okay, so that allowed you to get into basements and dig in the footers and
correct.
Okay.
Crawl spaces, all of that sort of.
But you separated it as its own business entity?
It is a DBA of RWM.
Okay, I got you.
But we wanted to have it enough separated so that the name would be a little bit more recognizable for people that may be looking for excavating work.
Without actually associating it with, okay.
Right, because it's not all about building homes and foundations. Excavating can be hundreds of different things.
Okay.
So I wanted to break that off and kind of specialize in that area and get some really good operators and people that really knew what they were doing, and take that part of the company and make it grow like the lawn care does. And now actually the outdoor maintenance division is separate from our lawn care division.
Real? Okay, so explain that.
So the houses that we do, there's some homes that all we do is we mow.
Okay.
But there's some homes that we do mowing and we maintain their landscaping. We call it bed maintenance. So we do a lot of property management. A lot of our clients don't just have us mow, don't just have us do their landscaping, anything that happens inside their house, I'm the first person they call. So if their furnace messes up, they'll call me because my call is going to cost them 1/10 of what it's going to cost them to call one of the local, HVAC companies.
Okay.
And 9 times out of 10, it might be a blown fuse.
Yeah.
Or their thermostat battery might be dead. I mean, I've got clients of all ages. And
well, but I mean, you get a client from one piece of the business, and it's just exposing them to all of the services to make it a one-stop shop
Right.
for all of their homeowner needs in general.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's
And,
awesome.
I mean, it's even gotten into cars now. I mean, I'm taking care of clients' cars. We do car detailing, auto detailing. So sometimes I have to run
That is really making the most out of what you have right there.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So I have a couple clients that we take care of everything that they need help with. So from obviously mowing to making sure their landscaping's right, to making sure their exterior lighting's correct, and then everything inside their home.
So how long? Okay, so going backwards, this journey that you just kind of walked me through, how many years is this?
Well, I'll be 46 this month.
Okay.
So this will be about 14 years.
14 years in the making.
To get to where I am today once I left the furniture store.
Wow.
I think I left the furniture store when I was 28.
So you'd given the furniture store a good decade of your life then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Even a little bit more than that, because when I was in high school, my dad always joked when I would go to our old furniture store down on Jefferson in Washington. My grandpa would always get coffee and go in, and he was semi-retired at the time I started going in and was old enough to know what's going on. And all I ever said was, I want grandpa's job. Because he comes in with coffee, he sits in a recliner and watches TV that's right next to the office and listens to everything that's going on, and if he needs to get involved, he does.
Hey, you know what, guys? I really there's a tagline right there, either a shirt or a hat. I want grandpa's job.
That was definitely so, and I was too young to know that wasn't his job. But hey, Grandpa made decent money, and I saw that. And when I went and saw him at work, and he'd take me to lunch a lot. Martina's was one of our favorite places, and I would get Martina's for lunch, but he would make me walk, and he would drive.
Really?
Yeah.
I just got to laugh because I'm just sitting there going, my hat's off to both your father and your grandfather, because it really, I don't know. Obviously you didn't see these lessons coming, but they were teaching you lessons in general. So let's talk about some lessons that you've learned on your own. There is no entrepreneurial journey that is just straight up. In the midst of all of this and spidering out, because it's brilliant. Like, if you can make more out of what you have, that's how you build a business in general. There's no way you did it without making mistakes.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those mistakes. Let's talk about some of the trials and tribulations, because as you're scaling, that means you're dealing with employees, which means there's got to be a whole load of learning lessons involved there.
And I would say that is the number one lesson, was finding and employing the correct and right people for the jobs.
Yeah, because the thing is you move from a frame of reference of just selling furniture to you very much went into a whole lot of manual labor.
Correct.
And having to surround yourself with a bunch of manual labor. Right. It's a completely different world.
Totally.
So how'd that go?
Well, because of the seasons and the different things I would do throughout the year, the summertime might be a lot of like high school kids that were helping with landscaping and lawn care. And I have employees that have been with me for 7 or 8 years now. one of them left for a year, and then he's like, no, I want my job back.
And that's a testament to you right there.
In fact, all of my employees that work for me currently, except one who has been there for 6 years and never left, and he was already retired from a teaching job.
Okay.
But everyone else has actually worked for me prior and has decided to come back. So a lot of times, they'll say, well, you're hard to work for. Well, you came back.
Are you hard to work for?
I don't think so.
Oh, no, because I'll be honest, I'm hard to work for. I will admit that I'm hard to work for. I have high expectations. I understand that I can't place the expectations that I place on myself on other people. But when you're trying to pay people well, when you're trying to build something and you care, that those expectations, there has to be a certain level of transference of those expectations.
Absolutely.
So I know that where I've had people that they'll say that I'm rough, but they'll come back and say, you also taught me how to be a good employee.
Exactly.
And so I'm sitting there going, yeah, I know that I will own that I'm harder. I think I've eased up over the years as I've just generally aged and calmed down a little bit. But I know that I've been more of the harder to work for because I don't let things roll off my back. Like I value the relationship with the customer. So if we make a mistake, I'm like, if I don't see you tripping over yourself to make it right, well, then I'm going to trip over you to make it right. And then I'm going to be pissed that you didn't understand that level of importance with the customer to actually make it right.
And I think that's one of the things that I have been working with over the last 2 years is the employees owning their own jobs.
The accountability is huge.
For example, the lawn care division, Cody, who's head of my lawn care, if somebody else stripes a yard for him because he had to be off or he was sick, the next week I have to hear all about how they messed up the stripes weren't straight. I mean, he takes so much pride in what he does. And so I'm trying to instill that into each one of my employees to get to the level that we're at now, where every single job that we do, we know that when it's done correctly, and it's at the customer's level of expectations.
Which obviously Cody gets.
Well, Cody gets it, and my team leads get it.
Okay.
I mean, they understand, but they're still in
it's job security.
And they're still in a learning curve right now.
Yeah.
So puts me a little bit out there a little bit more than I'd like to be sometimes. But that's the other thing is there's not a single customer that I don't at least talk to every once in a while or go visit the property, even if it's just a lawn mowing property. Sometimes they'll call and say, hey, we need our bushes cut. We normally don't maintain their bushes, but they want their shrubs trimmed.
Yeah.
So I'll go out with the bed maintenance guys because I know the client's going to be there just for that face-to-face,
the relationship
part of it. Yep. And I think that's a big benefit too.
And that's so at this point, you yourself have transitioned more into the relationship management side of it, and then you've got your leads to actually perform.
Correct.
Is this just thought out in your head, or is this something that you've actually diagrammed and laid out into systems, processes, and procedures?
I'd say a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think that some of the things that I learned in college, technical things, I've put into place in the business. I feel like college is more about learning how to learn and how to deal with situations more than it is about the content that they're trying to teach.
No, and I mean, it's good that you get that because I wonder how many of them actually get that. Because I mean, I'm a high school dropout. I had to teach myself how to learn. And a lot of what I see coming out of college just seems like it's a lot more indoctrination, and they think that they come out well, they graduated from college, so they know it all. And I'm like, I just know that I don't think that was ever the intent of college in general. I mean, even doctors have to start going into their residencies and training other people to truly learn the job itself.
Well, and it's a never-ending learning curve. You know, new situations arise every day. Mm-hmm. So the answer to your question is absolutely a mix. A lot of luck, a lot of good decisions, some bad. But when you have a bad decision, you take that and you make the best of it, whatever it is, and you learn from it.
There you go.
And as long as you learn from it and you don't make those mistakes again, you're on the path.
Yeah.
And the bricks keep getting laid for you.
Well, and that, right, because it's like, it's a game and you're on a level. And once you learn the lesson, you can go to the higher level. And that's that path to success. It's not a road so much as it is a stair-stepping path showing I have learned this lesson. I can now move up to the next level to learn this lesson so that I can continue, and 4 or 5 levels up is what the world sees as success.
Right.
And that's after you have had your head beat in a couple times and learn the lessons to continue to clear that level in general.
Right. And another thing that I think is real important for a business owner and an entrepreneur is you have to be proud and satisfied with who you are and what you've accomplished every day.
Okay.
Even when you have a bad day, you have to be happy with yourself in order to make it. Even if you just learned the biggest lesson in the whole world and you had a huge mistake and it cost you all kinds of money, you have to go to bed and you have to say, you know what? That's never going to happen again. And yeah, this sucks, but I got through it. And the only thing I can do is get up tomorrow and do the right thing again.
Not make that mistake.
Never make that mistake.
Yep.
And so that's how I live my life. I mean, every day I feel successful.
Now, here's the question, because I mean, what you're referring to is mindset. And I wonder, like, I know of no mindset courses. I know of no teachings or trainings at a young age to teach healthy mindset. The only time that I hear about mindset is in entrepreneurship, in business coaching, and in that type of reading and in those types of books. Where did you find that? What you have is a very healthy mindset. Generally, from what I've seen in this day and age, mindsets like that do not just come natural. You, one way or another, stumble across it. I mean, did this just come natural to you, or?
No, I think that I had a lot of people, my dad's friends, my father, my grandfather. I was surrounded by a lot of business owners and people that had fairly successful lives. And I learned a lot from each one of them, just little pieces. But I tried to take out what is it that makes that person happy every day. You know, some people it's just the money. Some people it's what did you do for that client that day? Did that make the client happy?
And there's a grateful mindset right there.
So being able to mix the two so that I get to go home and say, okay, I made good money. We worked hard, but we made money that we should have made, and we have a happy client. So every time we do a job, that's what I look for.
That is awesome. It's because I'm assuming that's what you're also teaching your people.
Exactly.
I'm really big on, if somebody's going to come into my business and give a piece of themselves, that they should be getting something in return. Right. And if you are taking that gained knowledge from all of those people, because like my father wasn't like that. What my father was a really hard worker. So through observation, that work ethic really led off onto me. Like, that's why I was ready to work, and I will outwork anybody. You were very fortunate to be able to be surrounded by those entrepreneurs, but that's a base level of fortunate. It took you paying attention to them and being open to that influence in order to let it positively affect your life.
Absolutely.
That's
like
awesome.
Watching my dad, at a young age, watching my dad look, okay, well, I have this lazy boy here. You like the way it sits, but this is the wrong color. You want blue and this is mauve. Give me a minute. My dad would walk back to the warehouse and he would grab the box with the recliner in it and he would carry it himself up, take the chair out of the box and put it together. Put the back on the chair, lock it, and say, here, try this chair. Same chair, but the color you want. That was the kind of thing I got to watch my dad do.
Okay.
And those are the kind of things he didn't expect somebody else to do it for him. And I think that was probably one of the hardest things because of the way I grew up. I definitely needed for nothing growing up. But, learning to do things for yourself and not expecting everyone else to do them for you, or being willing to do what you're asking that employee to do.
Yes.
If I take guys out and I say, okay, here's what needs to be done, I don't say, here's what I want you to do. I say, okay, I grab the tool, I dig or I cut or whatever it is, and show them and prove that I'm willing to do this job.
No, and I've been long said, leadership is about never asking somebody to do what you're not willing to do yourself. And I'll admit, because I'm at this point, they got to clean the grease traps multiple times per month. But I had many a times of cleaning those grease traps myself just to make sure that I could say, this is how it's done. And I wouldn't ask you to do what I'm not willing to do myself.
Exactly.
That's so, and the thing is like you say, you did not need for anything. It's sad that in this country, in this day and age, that anybody would honestly need for anything. That it's just too rich of a country for anybody to need for anything. But coming up in a family where you could potentially look and say, I didn't want for anything. It sounds to me like your parents knew enough to make sure that want was there, that you had to get out and earn it yourself if you wanted something.
We had, I'm not saying that there wasn't a little bit of being spoiled growing up.
Yeah.
That's definitely, there was some of that, but there were things that my parents put into place. One of the things that taught me the biggest lesson was my dad told me one day when I turned 14 or 15 that you're going to start doing all your laundry. Every time your mom does your laundry, you don't get your license for another week. I didn't get my license until I was 17.
I wish I had met your dad. That would have been maybe I could have found some better ways to motivate my kids. Go ahead, continue. I'm picking up learning lessons here.
That was a big lesson because...
Well, that's a huge motivator an extra week. I'm telling you, I had my license and my first pizza delivery job, and I paid to go get my driver's license early so I didn't have to wait for it. And if my father had told me, if you don't do X, I'm going to make you wait another week, he would have gotten whatever X was.
Well, my dad made me wait an entire year of school and made me wait until summer school driver's ed.
Really?
Because I obviously didn't do my laundry 50 times. But
you didn't get your license at 16 or 16 and a half?
No,
then.
It was I think I was almost 17 when I got my license.
Wow, okay. But that's the other side of it. He held to his word.
He did.
And that teaches a lesson in itself. Right. And that's...
And then on the other side of things, my mom, when I was younger, my mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was about 14 or 15.
Okay.
And I was in the kitchen with my mom for every dinner. We ate at home. We would eat out maybe once or twice a week, but we ate at home. And
a good home cooked meal.
I loved being in the kitchen with my mom. I still do.
Really?
And mom doesn't cook as much as she used to because she doesn't have to.
Yep.
But so now it's fun to go over and cook for mom and dad. But I learned how to cook from my mother. You know, she can remember me being 2 or 3 years old and stirring a pot of boiling water, and most people, you know,
would freak out about that.
It. So.
That is just, I mean, you know what? Sooner or later, this podcast is going to go out, and I'm just sitting there going, dude, you've got some great parents. I mean, like some really great parents. This world needs more parents like your parents. That is so awesome.
And it's very hard as a child to give your parents the credit.
Yes.
Because you can say it to them as much as you want, but they never really appreciate or understand that you appreciate what they did for you, no matter what you say, because that's what they expect. That when you're a parent, you're expected to be a parent, and you're expected to teach your children to do the best in life. I adopted twins when they were 16 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a good story right there, because the thing is like, we're coming back to that, but like, because what my question is like my kid, let's just say my son is not overly appreciative of me right now, because he looks at me and he's like, you're old school. You don't understand what's going on today. I do. I know everything. I got this. And I'm not hard on him about that, because I remember being that age, and I remember looking at my father the same way.
Yep.
So like, I'm questioning, did you ever go through that phase with your parents? Did you ever look at your parents with like, you're an old timer and you don't know what's going on because times have changed? And like, were you ever at that place in your life where you felt like you knew everything? And because with me, at like 26 years old, I don't know why I cling on to that, but at 26 was when like that light bulb went off, that I'm like, hey, dumbass, you don't know shit. And your parents know a whole lot more than you've ever given them credit for. And I really had to slow my roll. And I had to go express to my father that all the garbage that I had put him through over the last 5 to 10 years of that, I now understood that my learning had just begun, and that his experience and his wisdom was something that I should really be listening to. And I feel like I'm kind of getting it back on me right now, because my kid's going through that same thing, and I'm not overly being hard on him right now as far as like being mad about it, because I can look back and say, I understood. I know where you are. Right. I remember being there, but you seem like you had a different path with your parents, where I'm sitting here going, did you ever go through that phase? Or
I think that my dad was we had such a good relationship and such an open relationship, and I didn't have like a breaking point, like kind of like what you're talking about. I mean, my dad went through, and when I failed, he was there to help pick me up, but he was not going to just let me, free ride here. You're going to keep going. No, I'll help you get back up on your feet, but I'm not walking for you.
Yeah.
And so, when you have someone like that influences you, and my dad wasn't the only person. I had a lot of other people that almost consider me their own kids. And sometimes it's it kind of hurts me a little bit, because I feel like it takes away from what all my parents did do for me. But I have 6 or 7 families that consider me their son.
That's awesome.
And, some Christmases my parents aren't here. They'll be in Florida, or a lot of Thanksgivings and things like that.
Well, but I mean, because as I have been getting to know you, I want to touch on that, because I'm sitting there going, I don't know what age group is necessarily going to hear this. Like, this dude has a pleasant demeanor, so I can completely understand other families taking you under their wing and treating you like family. That only can say the amount of respect that you've given, and you have gotten that in return. So you can't be a little shit as a kid and be disrespectful to your elders and then be pissed when they're not there to support you and help you in your life's journey in general. You have got to appreciate and be grateful and respectful to your elders in order to expect that. And I mean, that's what, so, I mean, I don't want to call it luck. I'm just sitting there going, everybody has their own life's path in general, but
I was a brat.
Were you, well?
Oh, me and my brother, we were the brats. I mean, we definitely, it's taken me a long time for that close group of friends and family friends and family, you know, aunts and uncles and cousins. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of is I've earned the respect that I lost as a child.
And that was
not knowing I was losing anything.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know you're losing respect when you're, 9 years old and you're getting in a fight with your brother in the middle of the dinner at the country club.
At the country club.
Right. So, those type of respects, and I'm so glad you used that word respect because that's what it is. And a lot of people don't understand truly what respect means. And when you show it, that's when you get it in return.
Exactly.
And you won't get it without showing it.
Exactly.
I mean, you can respect somebody for what they've done or they've invented or, the goals that they've had and successes they've had in life. You can respect that. But you can't be respected by that person until you show them the respect.
That you got to give it to get it.
Right.
But that's again, we coming back to the mindset because, your mindset lends to even when you make a mistake, even when you've been beaten up by the world, being able to take a positive perspective, the only way that comes is through having a certain level of confidence. And the only way that confidence can come is through a certain level of achievement. And you can't do it all yourself, which does come back to giving respect where it's due so that other people are willing to help you clear those levels to get to that level of accomplishment that allows you to get to those achievements, that builds upon your success, that builds upon your self-confidence, and it all kind of ties in with each other. Yeah. And
then you end up, it creates a friendship too that has a bond that's, inseparable.
Exactly. Well, and then, of course, then we get into that, and I mean, because honestly, man, you've given such a compelling story when it comes to family. The whole statement, blood is thicker than water. And I'm like, but that's not the true statement. That the real statement that, I understand people gravitating towards that, and especially in we'll just say we're the upper end of the Bible Belt, a pretty conservative area of the country where they cling to that blood is thicker than water. But that is not the real statement where that word, where those words actually came from. I'm trying to think of the actual, because it was like, it was something to the effect of, the blood of the womb is not as thick as damn it. Now I can't even remember the overall statement a bit, but the point of the actual statement that was made is that, bonds made in battle are stronger than bonds made of blood. And that was so all circling back around where I'm like, maybe you had the best of both worlds in that respect, where you really had strong bonds in family, but you've went out and created equally strong bonds in the battle of life and entrepreneurship in general.
I'd say that my biggest failure, and still today, is my relationship with my brother. Although I was told by one of his friends the other day that if you know, if it was the end of the world, he would die for me.
Really?
But my brother and I are like water and oil.
Right. They just don't mix at all. Yeah.
And some days we have great days and some days we have awful days. But it's been that way since the day he was born.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's the age difference between you two?
2 years.
2 years. So not too much.
Not a lot.
Because that's funny because I joke that me and my sister, I want to say there's about 18, 19 months between us. And as kids, and she hates it when I tell this story because apparently I've exaggerated and blown it out of proportion. But no shit, I made her mad enough. She'd chase me around the house with a knife. It was that bad. But as we became adults, then there was a certain level of respect. And now I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for her. And I think that our bond has grown over time out of that respect for each other and our place in life in general. And
I know ours has too, but it's an unspoken bond.
Okay.
And you wouldn't know it by being around us, if that makes any sense.
No,
I would be the first person that he would call if something happened. And if I needed something, I know that I could always count on him being there just immediately.
But you guys just won't let nobody else onto that.
No, I mean, we just still don't get along.
Yeah.
We just have too many different opinions about everything. And he's always right. And I always think I'm right.
Yeah, there we go. That's I know.
I might be or I might not be, but I think I'm able to accept the fact that when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, and this probably isn't true, but in my opinion, he won't ever admit when
he's wrong.
He was wrong.
Yep.
Even if it's proven.
Well, I mean, and that might speak to because that might speak to ego.
Yeah.
Too many people let their ego get in the way. And it bruises their ego and it bruises their pride, and they just can't seem to. And that is you being your own worst enemy. You just can't seem to get out of your own way because your ego or your pride takes a hit. And so rather than do the right thing and show a little bit of humility, which would actually gain a certain amount of respect, you end up being your own worst enemy and almost childish and childlike in the process.
Yeah. But it's only with me.
Just only with you.
Trust me, he is a fantastic father. He's got a son that's almost 2, mm-hmm. and him and his fiance are fantastic parents, and he's an awesome dad.
That's awesome.
And everything else in life that he does, I have a lot of respect for him, and he took a totally different path than I did. He did telemarketing with Angie's List, and
man, that's hard stuff right there too.
And then decided that he loves to fish, mm-hmm. and so he decided, if I work at Chrysler, I can make a decent living. I don't go in till 3:00 in the afternoon, mm-hmm. so I have every morning all spring, summer, mm-hmm. and fall to go fishing, while I would normally go fishing and still go to work and be home by 11.
Wow. And I know that life. I mean, I lived it for many years, and I mean, because I chose to burn that bridge and walk away from Chrysler, but I have nothing but love for Chrysler. I'm still very Chrysler loyal in general, but I understand what he was saying because I was always a second shifter at heart. And I appreciated having my mornings and early afternoons to myself. I didn't go fishing. I was never much of honestly, not never much of I didn't. As a kid, I caught a 3-pound carp, and man, it fought. But I mean, outside of that, I really didn't. I did not fish. I didn't need the anxiety. Like, to me, fishing is, I get anxiety. If I go out by the water, I want to sit out there and just watch the water. And people are like, "So do you fish?" No, then I would be expecting to catch something, and I just water is where I find my peace in general.
But even to go back to Chrysler, it's impacted my family all the way back to my grandfather. Mm-hmm. My grandfather started the furniture store because him and his buddy, Cooksey, because it started out as Cooksey Miller, they were at the line at Chrysler one day, and my grandpa looked over at Cooksey and said, I'm not doing this anymore. And Cooksey said, I hate this. So they left.
Right.
They raced their cars to, I think it was Marion, somewhere mm-hmm. about a half hour away. They raced to the Kirby distributorship, and they bought a Kirby together. And they went door to door until they sold it. And then they went and bought 2.
Really?
And they went door to door until they sold those two. And my grandma still to this day goes, I couldn't believe your grandpa left. But within a year, they had the first appliance store in Kokomo. They had a Kirby repair shop. They were selling Kirby's from there. And then they started with, appliances, TVs. The first color TV in Kokomo went through Robert Miller and Son Furniture. Well, at the time, it was Cooksey Miller.
Yeah.
But
you're telling me they were flat out on the line at Chrysler and they just walked.
Said, done.
Wow.
So I guess that shows me a little bit. I think I learned that from my grandfather, that if you're not happy, you don't have to be.
Exactly.
You don't have to stay.
Wow.
But you got to be willing to take the risk.
And and
if you take the risk, you got to work for it.
Yep. And I mean, you got to burn the bridge behind you so you don't see a way back. And I think that's very cool that they were like, we're not going to stop until we sell this. Then we'll go back and get two. Then we'll go back. And that's a pretty motivational story in itself for family to actually get at. So, okay. So I told you that we were going to circle back around to this. You literally adopted 16-year-old twins.
Yep. Actually, right at their 17th birthday, right before they were 17. They had their driver's license when I adopted them. They were in Mechanical High School. They had, parents that weren't good parents.
Weren't parents.
They were moved in with their aunt and uncle. That ended up being not a good situation when they were getting ready to turn 17, and their collaborative care and adoption through child protection took them from there. And I had just happened to meet one of the two twins through a friend, and they were kind of given the option to find where they wanted to stay. If they wanted to stay with friends.
At that age, they gave them a little bit of latitude.
And so we met the following weekend. Their counselor or their case manager said, well, if this is something you think you want to try, then try it for the weekend, and then we'll meet on Monday after you guys get done with school, and we'll see if this is a fit.
Wow.
And they stayed the weekend, and they're still there.
And they're still there.
The first two children in their entire family to ever get a high school diploma. They still have the option to do school if they want to, but both of them have found jobs that they like and they're doing well in, and there's opportunity in their jobs that they have. So I'm not going to push school.
Yep.
And neither are anyone with their, the collaborative care and with their child protection.
Yeah, because the thing is it sounds to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, because of their age, it sounds like there was not a whole lot of, like, from what I understand, when it comes to adoption, there is a long, arduous process and a whole lot of hoops to jump through, and it can be a pretty costly endeavor. But
not in a collaborative care situation. It's basically a fostering more than an adoption, like a true adoption.
Okay.
There's no name changes or anything like that, but it's an awesome program, and the kids that are in it in Indiana, there's nothing like it anywhere else.
Shoot. And just you're meeting one of them, and you're just a big old sap, and you just couldn't help but.
Well, I saw them in a bad situation, and I have a house. I'm single. I live alone. I've got 2 extra bedrooms downstairs, another family room. I'm like, you know what? These guys are fun, and it worked out. We met and hung out for a week with, actually, it was employees of mine, friends.
Okay.
That's how we met. So
you put good things out into the world, and good things come back, Wes.
Exactly.
That's, wow. Okay, brother. I want to. We got to start looking to wrap this up, but again, it's the whole thing, and we've been huge amounts of nuggets to be had out of this conversation. But I did, the reason I did all of this was because I was looking for principles of success and business and life. So, in your life, do you have anything that you'd like to actually wrap up, or anything that you'd like to bring to the table as far as words of wisdom in your 46 years worth of life?
Don't be unhappy. Make the changes that it takes to be happy. And don't let anybody stop you, because only you can stop yourself.
And I will, the problem with people, and because I preach about this in a lot of ways, that the word spelling derived from the witches that would cast spells, and do not put that spell on me, and your self-talk determines everything in your life, and you should cast spells on yourself that are good and limitless. Because when you self-talk in limiting ways, I'm trying to achieve my potential, I'm trying to reach my potential, well, then you are implying that there is limits to your potential, as opposed to pursuing your potential, which is you understanding that you have a limitless life. So I would thank you, because that's a very good words of wisdom.
And from what you just said, one of the things I tell all my employees is the sky's not the limit, because what's on the other side?
An endless space.
Endless space.
Yes.
So the sky is just a level of achievement, and that's not the stopping point.
Exactly. Okay, so again, we are starting to bring this to a close, but Wes, where do people find you? How do they find you? Like I mean, literally, name of the business. If you've got social media out there, if you've got contact phone numbers, like if somebody wants to do business with you, how do they find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. We have a website, RWM Enterprises. If you search for that, you're going to find us. If you search Facebook for RWM and you're in this area, it's going to show my company. 765-878-1000 is our phone number.
You went out of your way to get a good number.
Yeah, we did.
878-1000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, we have a website for Earth Surface Solutions, earthsurfacesolutions.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on most of the social media platforms, and you can find us, search it. If you pull me up online, you're going to see RWM Enterprises, and
that's awesome.
Vice versa.
No, so guys, I really like. At the end of it all, while we're trying to do these podcasts, I'm not going to deny that in my own research, it's been like trying to find my voice, and I'm saying we're looking at somewhere around 20 podcasts, and I'm seeing the difference of how interviews flow, and I can honestly say, like, there are some huge nuggets to be had in all of this. And I'm gonna be honest, brother. You know what? Maybe you gave me a little bit of perspective that kind of makes me want to reach out to my own son right now. So I appreciate that. But what I'm getting at, guys, is that this has been a solid show. You should definitely share the show. If you agree or disagree with me, comment on it, but definitely subscribe, because it shows in interviews like this that this is why I did it. Thank you very much for coming out. But we're going to wrap it up. So until next time, you guys have a good night.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Brother, thank you very much for coming in.